Hello and welcome to Northside NOW. This is the podcast where your lovable hosts take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick, and with me as always are my co-hosts, Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant. What's up, guys?
What's happening?
Hey!
Ooh. And also with us today, the incomparable Kevin Glenn.
Oh, wow. That, I can't measure up to that. Incomparable.
Yes.
Intolerable, more like.
Hey, guys, why did Samson avoid arguing with Delilah? He didn't want to split hairs.
I knew it was going to be a hair thing. It's going to be a hair joke.
Who was the worst lawbreaker in the Bible?
I'm still recovering from the last one.
Who was the worst lawbreaker in the Bible?
Oh, man.
Moses. He broke all 10 commandments at once.
Oh, yeah. Ow. That was a big day for him.
Ow.
Well, never disappointing on the humor side there, Patrick.
I thought did you do the one, who was the best comedian in the Bible?
I did do that one, yeah.
That's what I thought you did. I couldn't remember.
Who said Christianity isn't funny? So what's going on with you?
I don't know where we're going now. That's my joke segment.
Oh, my goodness. I just look at him and laugh, y'all. That's good stuff.
You saying I'm funny looking?
No, yeah, something like that.
What, funny like a clown?
Yeah, there you go. So, well, good. Yeah. We do have football is in full swing.
Dun, 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 dun.
College,
yeah, did you see the
high school,
the men's national team
NFL.
play the other day?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
and I noticed that there's a lot of talk now to merge football and football.
What?
Around the one call of targeting. So they're looking at the possibility of implementing, something like a red card, yellow card thing instead of just throwing these kids out of the game because they one hit.
I have heard a
Things
little
like
bit about
that, or like hockey where you have like a timeout, in the penalty box or something instead of so there is some conversations because of the it's just a difficult when you're watching targeting on.
Yeah, because when you get into the professional ranks, you're being fined.
Yeah, exactly. But
There's some sort of penalty there, but not
and
so
somebody's
much
throwing out if they're going to pay college students, are going to get paid. Why not find them too? I don't know, but it seems kind of rough to get thrown out of a game just because you did something. Now you can mess somebody up by doing that.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Interesting stuff. But yeah, football's back with people in the stands.
Yep.
So that's a lot better than cardboard people.
I say they get rid of the pads. Oh, that'll make football safer because look at rugby players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough, and there are injuries, but not like there are in professional football with helmets and pads and everything like that on.
Mm-hmm.
So, the concussion rate in rugby is a fraction of what it is in American football.
Yeah, you're not going to hit somebody like you would.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, but that's boring.
Yeah,
boring. Not like the excitement that we've been having on Wednesday nights at the frequently asked questions with Pastor Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's some
And there
serious
was great
buzz around
rejoicing. Hey.
that. I think there's some really good buzz building about that particular time together, and
It's
rightly
fun.
so. Yeah.
And so my understanding is this last one, but as people are the last one that we did, you talked
Which would have
about
been the 8th.
is lying good? Can you lie? Is that a good thing?
Can you lie? Can you lie? Well,
yes,
it's not good.
I was going to say.
All right.
Yeah.
Can.
In the short version of this, it came out of the message on Sunday the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sunday the 5th, where we talked about Rahab and kind of an ethical conundrum that people fall on all different sides on is the fact that whenever the spies were sent into Jericho, they went to Rahab the prostitute, maybe a bit more accurately, Rahab the madam, the innkeeper. That inn would have been a brothel. So anyway, a house of ill repute, and that's where the spies stayed. When the king of Jericho heard about it, dispatched men to Rahab's place and said, "Hey, bring them out." She said, "Oh, no, they're not here. They left. And if you hurry, you can catch them." which was not true because they were hidden upstairs in the roof, kind of. And so she lied. And then the Bible, to be fair to some of the folks that are a little more black and white on things, she wasn't commended necessarily for lying, but she was commended for hiding them. I think that's splitting hairs, so to speak, like Samson. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of semantics. But at any rate, it does raise the concern about, okay, so she practiced deception in the protection of these spies and was on God's side, so to speak, in making that and doing that. So what does that mean? Can you lie? Was it okay that she lied? And so different perspectives, some perspectives are, well, yeah, she lied, but she wasn't part of the covenant community yet. It was in her kind of quote unquote pre-salvation state. I also think that's a little bit of a dance. And it doesn't account because she had talked about how, look, we know who you are. We know what God's been doing. We're all freaking out about it. Let's work something out. And I know your God's the real God, ultimately. And and it's not the only example of there being deception in the Bible. The Hebrew midwives lied to Pharaoh, or I'm going to put lied in air quotes. They did not disclose to Pharaoh the whole truth about things. Specifically, when Pharaoh said, hey, if boys are born, you need to kill them. And they just flat didn't do that. But when asked about it, they said, these Hebrew women are strong, man. They're having the kids before we get there, which, okay. I'm sure that happened at times. I'm sure that didn't happen every time. So, not all of the facts is not all of the truth either. So there was that, and other things throughout history that I talked about in the sermon. So the point being, what do we do with that? And where I went, I kind of went with Dietrich Bonhoeffer's reasoning. Bonhoeffer was a German theologian and pastor in World War II and was very active in conspiring against the Nazi Party and against Adolf Hitler, and was involved in 2 attempts on Hitler's life to have him assassinated, and practiced deception and dishonesty. And Bonhoeffer said there are times that, let me back up. He said being obedient to God goes far beyond simply not lying, is the way that he put it, and that there are times when deception is required in order to be obedient to the Lord, and one of those times for him is when lives are in danger, when someone's life is on the line. So that's kind of where he is. One of the other commentators that I read about said, there's ethics. There's everyday ethics, then there's wartime ethics. And that deception is an important strategy in war or when innocent lives are in danger. Okay. So was Bonhoeffer right to lie? Was Rahab right to lie? So kind of where I settled on it was, I don't think that we have to go to either the extreme of Immanuel Kant, who said you cannot lie ever under any circumstances. I think that's too far in one direction, or the moral relativist who said, if it's gonna get you in trouble or be inconvenient, just lie. No, we're not going to that extreme either. Of course, as with most things, the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I think it has to be a judgment call. And that judgment call, there's a philosophical approach called the hierarchy of values. And in the hierarchy of values, you live according to the values. And one of the highest values is telling the truth. Truth telling is one of, if not the highest value, and you live by that. Unless there's a situation where a higher value trumps that one for some reason. And in the case of slaves hiding in the Underground Railroad, Jewish families being hidden in the homes of people during World War II, spies being hidden in Rahab's house or whatever, the value of human life being spared and saved for that moment, it's argued, is of a higher value in that moment than truth-telling. And so that's one way, is the value the value of life being protected. Another angle of that same view is realizing that truth itself has a value. Truth has a weight to it, a value to it. And part of the judgment call on the hierarchy of values is what would one of the king of Jericho's men, what would they have done with the truth had it been given to them? How would they have stewarded it with its value? Not well. Mm-hmm. And so then it's, okay, truth being so valuable, is the person who's demanding it entitled to it? And that judgment call is based on what are they going to do with it? Is it going to be valued in a way that's consistent with human flourishing? Well, no, it's going to bring about demise to innocent life. Okay, then make your judgment call based on that. But that can also break down to another situation where you don't have to reveal all of the facts of something, and you can still tell the truth, but you don't have to share all the facts. And that's another thing that one writer talked about, that we need to learn how to distinguish between truth and facts. And it may be true that I'm hiding someone in my house who's in danger. And if someone isn't demanding the whole truth from me, then what facts can I give them that will bring satisfaction and de-escalate the situation? So that's another part of it too. A situation that I read about there is a child is in class and the teacher asks, "Hey, how's your dad?" And what the teacher doesn't know is that student's dad had just come home from a 3-day bender the night before, and everything is in disarray. There's a lot of damage, or they just found out that he's been diagnosed with advanced cancer. Okay, let's take it out of the realm of something criminal.
Sure. Right.
Sure.
In that moment, in front of the class, that teacher doesn't need all the facts.
Yeah.
And so it would be appropriate for that kid in that moment to say, he's doing okay. And that be it. Because in that moment, it wouldn't be proper. It would be a lack of discretion for the kid to share all the facts. And that's one reason why, it can be hard at times when the floor is open for prayer requests, because far too many facts are shared without discretion, without propriety and stuff. So anyway, that's kind of a long, short way of saying separate truth from facts and realize that sometimes the facts are on a need-to-know basis, and not everybody asking for the truth needs to know all the facts. And the truth itself is valuable, and someone demanding the truth, we are within our right to determine to what extent are they able or entitled to handle the value of the truth that they're demanding.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to be handled well because it's going to be misused to hurt or kill somebody, then the value of preserving life outweighs the value of truth-telling in that moment. But 99.9% of the time, we live by the higher value of telling the truth.
Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Well, it's in this sea of what we deal with every day in all of our lives. Yeah,
Yep.
it is
everyday gray.
challenging. And it when you were talking about that, for some reason, I'm watching this show, just fairly new to me, but the phrase "own your truth" was in there. And so then that brings up in my mind, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So is truth a very subjective thing, or is truth that we should sort of be our North Star, something that, what God would see as the situation? But I hear that kind of thinking a lot. Well, it's your truth. So how do we deal with that? I mean, is that a legit thought that truth can mean one thing to me, but somebody else, or I've heard that kind of philosophy. Well, this is my truth.
Yeah. And I think what's happening there is truth is being used as the word to describe someone's experience. And the one thing is, I can't tell you, you didn't have that experience. We call that gaslighting, Yeah. And so I think where some of that came from is truth has, in in previous discussions philosophically, when I took philosophy and everything in college, it was truth is reality. True, the search for truth is a search for reality. And okay, that sounds good. And in fact, in one sense, truth is reality, but which one? So if one has a belief in objective truth that exists outside of my control, outside of my ability to fully comprehend or manipulate, then that reality is something that's fixed, and I have to arrange my life around it, or him. On the other hand, there is a reality that we live into because of our experience. And what we experience is real. And I think it's become synonymous with my experience is real, and it's become interchangeable with the phrase my experience is true.
Right.
There's a difference between your experience being real and your experience being true. This is my truth. When I hear that, what I'm hearing is this is my experience. This is the reality that I see based on my experience. Okay, but that's not necessarily the truth, because it could be, that if someone's reality is that they've been abused and mistreated, so they develop kind of the Stockholm syndrome, where they develop compassionate feelings for their abuser, and they say, well, no, they're just passionate. It's not anger, it's passion, whatever.
Sure.
Well, they've constructed a reality, and they live there, and they're comfortable there, but no, but it's not based on truth. The truth is that person is angry, and they're taking that anger out on you, and they've given you a warped reality. And cults do that. There's a whole deprogramming thing and manipulation thing. So that was off the top of my head, so I hope that made sense. But it kind of depends on, are you counting on your own experience to determine what truth is, or do you measure your experience based on an objective outside source of truth? And however you do that, that's going to determine what you believe your truth is. I don't know if that's true or not.
But
That's not my truth.
but it is factual.
Well, it's true for me, Patrick.
Well, and here's something true. Every man will walk into that dilemma if he goes shopping with his wife for clothes. Does this the right color? Does this make me look fat, honey?
Yeah.
That's where
Love
you
you,
answer
dear.
like Jesus did. It is as you say.
Do you think it makes you look fat?
Yes.
If it makes you feel bad, then don't buy it.
Now we're getting in deeper.
If it makes
How
you
do
feel
you-
good,
That's right.
here's
How do
my
you-
credit card.
How do you feel about that outfit, babe?
But really, I guess even as people grow up as kids, I think they bring that stuff, and,
Oh, yeah.
and they bring that to adulthood into their relationships. It's kind of it's a little bit of it's a good story, but it's a little bit of a funny thing around our family now. But it originally was a thing of hurt. We had rescued a dog here from the church, the old black dog that was, remember that one, Patrick? And the poor dog wasn't going to live around very long. So we took it home, and Dr. Russell, we all kept her comfortable. Ended up being a great dog. She ended up living for a little while. But she needed to, just say old Yeller needed to happen with that dog, bless it. And the girls were at school, and they got home, and Lady had died. And I made the choice just to leave it at that. Oh, it is. Well, of course, Barbie knew several years, actually just a couple of years ago, we may even not even to 2 years yet. The truth had come out. And
Oh, no.
And what? Dad, you didn't, right? I was like, well, y'all just didn't need to be, there's some other, you just didn't need to deal with that. It just didn't need to be laid on your shoulders at that point. All you needed to know is she was no longer with us. She's perfectly fine now.
Right.
Didn't tell any details. Of course, I've had to do that a few times, and that's just so darn difficult. It's the worst thing you got to do in the world. But, there's things like that. And I think that's kind of where we're at is there are some things that are just better left unsaid or left to more concise explanations than what needs to happen at that moment, and the rest can be told later.
Yeah.
If needed, So now if people would just learn that on their social media stuff.
Yeah. Less is more.
Less is more. Well, good. Well, I'm glad the frequently asked questions are going good. And
yeah, it's going well. Right. And then after that, we're talking about women's roles in the home and in the church and everything. Of course, I'm an egalitarian and everything. So I'm kind of presenting the biblical information from that perspective, and also kind of taking on the passages that are typically used to prohibit women from exercising pastoral gifts and everything in the church. And we're going to deal with a lot of those in the next frequently asked questions. What we dealt with on the 8th was the whole issue of submission, and in Ephesians 5. And, overall, it's wives are not the only people that are told to submit.
Yeah.
That's really the resounding truth there. And when you go there, every sermon I've ever heard on it started with verse 22 of chapter 5, which is wives submit to your husbands. The problem is you're cutting off the head of the whole. You got to back up one more verse, and it says, be subject to one another, be submissive to one another. And then it goes on to describe how that looks like with wives, how that looks like with husbands, how that looks like with children, and then later on even slaves. And so And everything that Paul wrote about in Ephesians 5 was incredibly countercultural, given the thing of the day. So you have to check out the recording of that one to see how I unpack that. And then this coming week is when we're going to look at those passages that seem to say that women shouldn't be teaching or preaching in church, and see how the context actually turns that on its head. Yeah.
And remember, if you have any questions you'd like for him to answer at his frequently asked questions, you can email those to kevin@northsidejackson.com.
Yes, you can.
Try to stump him. I'm waiting for somebody to try to stump him.
Oh, it'll happen.
Well, if you find this topic interesting, or just want to have further conversation, share various things. Share about the services that you've experienced, or share this podcast with somebody.
Please do.
Because I think the conversation is really important. And God can enter into all these conversations, and does. And so that's why we want people to be engaged with all that.
Well, and when we were talking about the things that people experience in childhood, and Glenn, you were talking about bringing it into adulthood, that's where a lot of mental illness really comes into play.
Right.
And so that's a segue.
It is.
Into one of the things we want to talk about, unless there are other things.
Keep rolling.
Let's do it.
So what is it you were going to say, Glenn?
Well, at the end of this month, or towards the end, I think it's the 23rd, there's a new movie coming out called Dear Evan Hansen, which is based on a Broadway musical by the same name, about a young man who is struggling in all kinds of ways, but mostly about just being connected with others. And he writes a letter that is not expected to be seen by anybody else. It was an exercise that he was doing with his therapist. And anyways, the letter got picked up by a friend at school, or it really wasn't a friend. It was just another guy.
Acquaintance. Yeah.
And evidently had given him maybe some hard times. And the kid had broken his arm, and the guy signed real big on his cast. And it goes about that the guy who signed, his name's Connor, who signed the Evan's cast, ended up committing suicide. And Evan has a conversation with with Connor's family, and comes out that it looks like Evan was Connor's only friend. And Evan thinks he's the only one that's hurting so badly, and evidently Connor was too. And the parents didn't even think Connor had a friend. But it goes on. There's evidently, I've just am learning about this because it popped up on some of our youth pastor groups and things like that. And they make you aware of things like this as they're coming down the road. If they think your kids will be talking about it, youth will be talking about it, because we know youth really struggle with this. And so I've been watching the trailer and some other stuff, and I just have kids' names pop in my head as I'm watching this, So, really interesting story. Great music. I mean, the Greatest Showman, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Some of those people who did the music for this, and so the music is just fantastic.
Well, my oldest daughter is a huge Dear Evan Hansen fan, primarily from the Broadway production of it, which won Tonys in
Yeah.
multiple categories.
That's the way I was familiar with it as
Right.
well. I honestly didn't even realize they were making a movie
Yeah.
about it.
Well, I didn't even know it was a Broadway musical.
Yeah.
So there we go.
But I think that it's so relevant, and it's a very poignant story because it involves mental illness, it involves bullying, it involves depression and just loneliness, and some of the things that I think, if we were all completely honest, we've all experienced or experienced now, especially in adolescence, right? Because that's just such a challenging time of our lives. But even now, where we do feel so very polarized, whether it's culturally or intellectually, let alone politically, right? And so it's very easy for folks to just feel alone. And that's what this deals with so much. But it also deals, it's interesting, we were talking about lying, right? Because the whole,
Exactly.
not too much spoilers here, but the whole thing is really around this one kind of big lie that is allowed to
Grow.
grow. Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
spread.
And become something really huge.
Well, it gets viral even. That's
Exactly.
that's the word of the day.
So it's relevant to
yeah.
our time period.
Yeah.
It's relevant to so many folks in terms of where they live in the day to day. And so I think whether the movie's successful or not, I think the musical for sure is showing us that it's tapping into something that is really relevant for our time. And so it goes to so many questions about how the church or Jesus followers should deal with these things, whether it be lying, which you talked about, Kevin, or suicide, bullying, some of those things where we could say on the surface, yeah, well, we're against that. But how are we really acting on that to either help change that dynamic or to address it? You know, I think it's one thing that's easy, and I'll speak for myself. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm against that. And if I have an opportunity, if someone asks me about it, I'm going to say I'm against that. But maybe I'm being convicted that we need to do more than just say we're against something. We actually need to take some Christian action on it.
I don't know. I'm kind of okay over here in my little Christian bubble. I don't.
I know
need
you talked about bubble last time too. So, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think that, and you know, whether you want to call it a call for revival or whatever, but I think so many of us get complacent about where we are, whatever's comfortable. You know, even if we're doing great ministry things. And I was thinking about when Yako was in here and talked recently about being called to step out and actually do something. I mean, I think he's a fantastic Christian guy, mentor, and you know, example for so many people. But he was feeling called to actually do something. And I think we all probably are. It's just, are we taking the step that into what's next? And I think that could be made for great discussion when we talk about something like Dear Evan Hansen.
You know, and I really encourage parents to watch this with your students or watch it before your students do. They're going to be talking about it because they're already talking about the music of it because the music of it is hot right now. And, and what I've seen of it from so far is it's not the story and from like the 13 Reasons Why series that was out. It's not that kind of
It's not glorifying suicide.
It's not that kind of thing. It's really dealing with these issues and stuff. So it's definitely something you will want to watch with them and get some help with your kids. If your kids are dealing with these kinds of issues, it's the reason we're here. It's the reason if they're really the reason we will help you find someone way more skilled than us to help them if we need to. You know, it's just, but we will walk with you through that even, you know, because there's, even in the trailer and things and some of the stuff I've read about, there's a lot to deal with in the parents as well on this thing. And so, you know, I'm glad to know more about it for sure, but also it will be something our kids are talking about. So definitely want to be prepared out there to talk about it.
Well, and the larger issue of mental health itself is an important one, both for the kids and parents, all of us really. Because I don't know that, you know, I'm still getting to know Northside. And one of the things I love is that Northside actually has a trained, licensed counselor on staff, and she does a fantastic job. But one of the things about that even is many times whenever people come to see her, they don't want to enter through our main entrance.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I don't want to be seen. Okay, I understand privacy, totally understand privacy, but I think that's also indicative of a remaining stigma within the Christian community to counseling and therapy and medication and things like that. Because one of the things that I think it's very, very, very important for listeners to understand, and I'll start with parents, I'll start with adults, we are all just big kids.
That's true.
The trauma that the traumas and insecurities and hurts and stuff that we experienced in our childhood, and all of us did,
Right.
It doesn't go away, and it can aid in warping how we interpret reality. Going back to what we talked about a minute ago, and how we interpret different things that come our way and interpret life, and then bringing a kid into the world. Now you're interpreting it, and your kid is watching you interpret it, and you're interpreting it for your child to an extent, and they do what you do. They don't do what you say. Okay, they do what you do.
Exactly.
And they see you doing. And I'm not saying this to say anybody's doing anything wrong. I'm saying we're all in the same boat and we're all seasick.
Right.
So I think it's not just okay. I think it's absolutely vital to deal with your stuff.
Yeah.
Every one of us, even if we don't have a diagnosable mental illness, every single one of us could use help in our mental health. And I think I want to make this statement. I want this, going on recording here. Christians get depressed, and that is not a sign of a lack of faith. Okay. Christians experience anxiety and depression, and Christians, who love Jesus and trust Jesus with every fiber of their being, are crippled with fear. And a lot of that is because we don't know how to deal with our stuff. A good therapist can help you walk through it. You need more than a Bible study. Okay. You need more than a prayer partner. And you definitely need more than a peer, because your peer doesn't know any more than you do. I'm preaching a little, but it's just, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen kind of the same thing in everywhere that I've ever served. There's just this, what does it say about my faith if my Christian group, if my small group, if my pastor, if they knew I was going to see a therapist? I want to tell you right now, as your lead pastor, I will give you a high five, and I will say you are doing what is healthy.
Yep.
And what I don't understand is we make all these applications to our physical health. Well, you need to have a wellness check each year. You need to go have a checkup. Once you pass 50, you need to have things done that some would deem unnatural, and all that, to take care and to do preventative. You need to be talking to a therapist at times, because you got stuff to work out. And then if you do, it's really it's gonna be way easier for your kids. When I was in youth ministry, I don't know how many parents would want their kids to be in therapy, and their kids are like, I'm not talking to anybody. And you get down to it, it's because their parents won't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
And it's like, if you're not, don't expect them to. So, and with medication, again, not only have I heard Christians say, well, if someone's really walking with Jesus and having their quiet time and attending church and everything, they won't get depressed. Baloney. The other side of that baloney is that, well, I just don't believe in medication. Well, tell me that the next time you have a headache.
Right.
I'm going to say, hey, don't you touch those goody powders. Don't do it. I've gotten familiar with goody powder since I moved to Tennessee.
He's going to be talking NASCAR next week.
That's right. So, we'll take Tylenol or goody powder or whatever for a headache. We'll take simvastatin for cholesterol lowering. We'll have a procedure to expand the arteries that we've clogged with that good barbecue. But I don't think it's right to take medication for a mental issue. It's chemicals. Right. Many times the chemicals in the brain aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and medications can help them do that, just like other medications can help facilitate lowering cholesterol or lowering your blood pressure. So anyway, that's my PSA. I'll get off my soapbox now, but I'm such a huge proponent of mental health, especially if you're a follower of Jesus. That doesn't make you immune from depression or anxiety or fear or anything. It doesn't make you immune from it. And I think God has given us wisdom in how the mind works and how the mind's connected to the body and all that, so that those things can be managed and treated. So
yeah, and
do it.
And for me, it's not a soapbox at all, because we've been talking about this for pretty much the last year plus with the COVID and things that have made us more isolated.
Yeah,
and I think it's a great thing that it's becoming more of a topic that some of us at least are having conversation on. For me personally, just growing up thinking about, we never really talked about that at all.
Right.
And I think that even now to talk about it is a little risky because, and I was trying to think while you were saying, where the stigma comes from. And I think it in some ways is because we as humans want to belong to something. We don't want to be seen as different or to stand out in any way. And that comes from adolescence, right? We're trying to find which groups we belong in, how we associate and identify ourselves. But to say that we're going to therapy makes us different in some way. And dare we say it may be broken a little bit. And none of us really want to admit that we're broken or don't have our stuff together. And so that's one of the places that it comes from. But I think in just as we try and teach our kids that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength.
that's right. Yeah.
The same is true with mental health. And I know from experience with our family that you may be quote unquote fine, not have mental illness until something happens in life and then it develops.
Yeah.
I've heard folks, whether they're in a accident and actually something changes with their brain chemically,
Yeah.
or the PTSD thing is a real thing.
It is very real. Yeah.
And so that they didn't always have PTSD, right? And whether it's a child that's gone through some trauma, maybe it's not abuse, but it could be the loss of something really close to them. Even that kind of thing does, in fact, like you said, change the chemical nature of your brain. And when that doesn't work in the way it's designed, there are symptoms and outcomes from that. And so I totally agree with what you're saying. And we in this podcast have talked about that quite a bit. And we'll continue to.
But you bring up a great point because, I mean, you'll get a free colonoscopy or, your insurance will pay for these things, but you don't get a free visit to a therapist. Probably if we had an opportunity to go have a mental health checkup every year or every few years, one on the insurance company, that might encourage a few people. I doubt it would everybody, but there needs to be more avenues opening up. I would think by now we're beginning to understand that these things are just as important as your cholesterol or as your, the way they look at rates and all the crazy numbers and percentages they look at.
I've seen some change, especially with kind of general family practitioners, that with our kids for well checks, they will have a, when you have to fill out paperwork of what's happened.
Yeah,
during the year.
pediatrics has grown.
And they will say, they have a whole page on mental health.
Yeah.
How have you been feeling? Are you feeling scared? Those kinds of things. So I think maybe it's creeping its way into the mainstream.
And
but from an insurance perspective, that is very frustrating because I think one of the greatest deficiencies in our whole healthcare system is mental health. There's just, when you get to a certain level of needs, it's just very expensive and very hard to find what you need. And if you're not your own advocate, it's not going to happen at all. So it is a frustration of mine personally and just a challenge that I think we face.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do think some things are changing. You see, the popularity of this Dear Evan Hansen play. There's a reason why it tapped in, that it resonated. The support that athletes like Simone Biles and the tennis player Osaka,
Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That she got from pulling out of a tournament a while back for mental health reasons. And, it was really good. It was really good to see. I don't know that she was the first, but she definitely got a lot of attention. And then Simone Biles got even more. And then for Michael Phelps to come out and talk about, the depression that he had faced. So I remember one of the first times I heard about it was way back when John Smoltz was pitching for the Braves. And how he had a sports psychologist that would travel with him.
Yeah.
And how back then though it was like, oh, crazy John. That's what I heard people say. But I think if that were happening now, it'd be a different a much different response.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see and hear those things in the larger culture, and just want to help people of faith understand your faith isn't weak because you're struggling with some of this stuff.
Yeah, totally.
This just in Northside News.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Well, coming up, we've got, handbells are starting back.
Oh, cool.
Any of you ding-a-lings out there want to...
That rings true with me.
There we go.
You're a handbeller.
Yeah. I've played my fair share. But if you're interested, you can contact my mother, Mitzi Mathenia. You can send her an email to mitzi@northsidejackson.com, and she'll get back to you with all the times and the startup info on that.
For finger symbols, email Kevin no, I'm kidding.
Hey, I'm all over that. Let's go. You don't need any musical background or experience to play handbells. She'll teach you everything you need to know. So it doesn't hurt, but you don't have to have it.
And it does help to be able to count.
It does. You probably need to be able to count to four.
To four.
Yeah, just to four. Beyond that.
Yeah.
Is that why the handbell people don't wear shoes so they can count?
Yeah, in case they need to go up to count their toes. Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, goodness.
Also, children's music, we're going virtual for a few weeks, and the kids are videoing every Wednesday. If your child is interested in participating in any of those videos, you can also contact Mitzi, Mitzi@northsidejackson.com, or call the office 668-0617. And what else do we have going on?
We have some new communication things that are on the horizon.
I've heard a little
tease.
whispers
Oh, yeah.
about this.
Trying to keep this on the DL.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can let
There
it
may
out.
or may not be some
There may or-
photos out there soon.
Ooh, yeah.
I've heard.
There may or may not be a church app and updates on the website, and soon
a new website.
a new website. Yeah.
Same address,
Yes.
but a new website.
And
I hear tell there's
Yeah.
a new website
you
coming.
may or may not be able to watch your Sunday morning services on your Apple TV or your Roku device.
Yeah.
We're gonna get real fancy.
Apple TV. Wow.
Yeah.
This podcast is not sponsored by Apple TV.
Yeah. There may or may not be a new online giving portal that's going to be even easier to use, and more options on how you can give.
Yes.
This all may or may not sound exciting.
It is. We're just trying to, keep it. We're trying to keep it cool.
Yeah.
And I have heard tell that we may or may not be losing the old bag here soon.
Really?
May or may
Don't
not be.
say that about her.
Yeah.
I was wondering,
Yes, dear.
of whom do we speak?
I think he's talking about the sign.
Oh,
We'll have to lose our nickname of the Bag Church.
Yeah, we're not the
but-
bag church anymore.
this is true. Yeah, I hear tell in my neck of the woods that a logo,
Yeah.
sign.
Yep.
Oh man, all kind of changes.
Man, those
Really
things are changing.
Cooking.
The times are a changing at Northside.
Yes.
So cool.
I'm excited.
We really are excited. We can't contain it.
It is hard to wait.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Especially, it's like what's in. It's like
I know, it's like-
what's under that Christmas tree. I want to open it now.
It's like the trend of, I don't know if this was TikTok or what it was, where you put a bowl of M&Ms in front of a kid, then you walk away,
Oh,
or
yeah.
or lollipops or whatever it is, their favorite things.
Marshmallows
And see, now don't eat this before I get back, and you can watch and see how long they wait.
What's
It's
that?
usually not very long.
The marshmallow test.
Yes.
Oh.
That's very exciting though.
That's great.
The marshmallow test.
Oh, well, we do have on September 26th, church picnic.
That's where the old men will be whipping up on you whippersnappers that think y'all can beat us in football.
I don't know which team I fall on this year. What's the cutoff?
You're the old man.
I figured.
So yeah, the youth, they've been talking a little smack though.
Really?
They have been. So, but there's going to be other things. There's going to be like an egg carry toss thing.
Okay.
Some cornhole and volleyball and all kinds of fun things.
Yard
at
darts?
Pewborn.
Yeah.
We could do that.
I think those are illegal still, aren't they?
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Are they illegal?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I mean, they're giant spikes that you throw in the air, so not really safe for kids.
Man, they're just messing everything up.
But I think they are they still
do,
sell
yeah.
them. They're
Yeah, they do.
plastic now.
Well,
They're
yeah.
Plastic now. Yeah.
Those
they're
are
all-
no fun.
They don't have the lead points on the end zone.
They're all safe now.
It's just not as much fun when you're not fearing for your life.
We will have spike ball out there. If you've never
Really?
played spike ball is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
I don't know what spike ball is.
Yeah,
What
it's
do you-
kind of a trampoline volleyball
okay.
thingy.
four players, right? Or I guess you could have more than that.
Yeah,
but I mean,
four is typically.
and
Put
you
the
throw in
Gaga
the
pit
ball
out
and
there.
ooh.
Our Gaga pit we need an 18-wheeler to move that thing.
Oh, okay.
That thing is heavy. We're going to move it around to the front up here, not the front of the church, but out here in the back where you can play it better.
Nice.
But thanks to one of our scouts for building that for us. That was an Eagle project, but he used all the real wood.
Oh, wow.
The real wood in that thing. So it's going to take a village to move it, but it'll be worth it.
Well, that picnic's the 26th, and the games start at 4 o'clock, and the cookout's at 5, and it's at Pewborn Park. Yeah, Pewborn Park. So put that on your calendar.
There'll be more announcements about that.
Yeah,
in
for
terms
sure.
of
Yeah.
How to get involved.
There's flyers around the church and everything too. So be looking for all those.
Yes.
Pretty neat.
That'd be fun.
We've not done that in a couple of years. Or actually been a little bit longer. We've done a few little gatherings in the back here, but to actually do the big picnic and stuff will be fun.
Just like the good old days.
About
Yes.
13 years for me since
Yeah.
the last one I went to.
And that's outside. So, it's
All right.
outside is our friend
Right.
in the COVID world. So hopefully if you're feeling well and everybody in your family's well, you can be there.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I have
Oh.
one more thing.
Oh,
This is
don't wanna cut off.
for all my Generation X friends out there. In light of the fact that the millennials this week had a lot of feels because Steve from Blue's Clues
I saw this.
made a video where he kind of explained his abrupt exit, and
25 years.
yeah, brought a lot of tears to a lot of eyes. But us Generation Xers, we have our own thing. So I'm going to read this.
You're going to make me cry here, aren't you?
Maybe. I'm too old to know what Steve from Blue's Clues is talking about. But if Teddy Ruxpin would like to formally apologize for scaring me to death when we first met, I'm all ears, Mr. Ruxpin. I'm all ears. Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah, buddy.
On that,
Teddy Ruxpin, that was the teddy bear that you put the cassette tapes in. Is that right?
creepy.
Yeah.
Teddy
Yeah.
Ruxpin. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever put like a, I don't know, Metallica cassette or something like that in your Teddy Ruxpin?
Well, and
I'm just curious.
No, but it just kept turning on by itself.
And did your daughter ever have those little Furby things
Oh, yeah.
that would talk? Oh goodness! And they would just talk in the. They'd talk to each other in like the toy box and stuff.
Those things fall in the gremlin territory.
They
for
do.
me. It's
Yeah,
just
they do.
like too creepy.
They do.
Don't feed it after midnight.
Or get it wet. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the language they used was like the black speech of Mordor.
Probably very similar. Well, and also, y'all, we do have to remember that 20 years ago, recently, over this past weekend, was 9/11. Yeah, and I want to tell you that been an interesting 20 years, and that was a very interesting day. I know, especially for me. And so, just thank you to all those that it served, and have continually prayed for all those lives that were affected that day, and then all the ones that have been affected since.
Yep. Where were you?
I was here in Jackson, actually down at the Y, and then Millington Naval Base called. And before the next morning, I was at the base of the I-40 Hernando Bridge guarding it. So I was still in reserves. So.
Yeah, I remember I was driving to work. I worked in Bells, Tennessee at that time, and heard it on the radio, and then went inside, and there was a break room, and so we were glued to the TV pretty much for most of the morning. Not a lot of productive work got done because we were really concerned about all that. But I do remember, and several folks that are listening to this would remember when we got together as a church, and we had just a time of an evening of reflection in the chapel.
Yeah.
Some prayer for sure. And it was just such a gut punch in so many different ways. I mean, if you were involved in the military like you were, Glenn, so that's a whole different thing that you were feeling. But for those of us that maybe weren't or didn't have that connection, still was a great loss of life. Was just such a, it really just, I think it changed everybody who lived through that, at least for a moment. And it's sometimes when I reflect on it, it's sad that maybe that didn't continue.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we reflect on it and we don't forget about it, that it can continue to motivate us and change us to be more present with people, to work together as opposed to being divided.
Being in some remote places in my life where there wasn't a lot of air traffic, but there was still something. But those few days after where there was none. Air traffic, that was the weirdest feeling. You just the silence was so loud.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yep. I was in Las Cruces, New Mexico at a prayer breakfast. It was a men's prayer breakfast, and guys' phones started ringing and everything. And the first thing that I heard was one of them saying the Pentagon's under attack. And it was so I heard about the Pentagon before I heard about the towers, but then we went and found a TV, and yeah.
I remember vividly someone, it was up on a TV where we were working out, and someone said, "Oh, that's going on." I said, "Oh no, because we just kind of glazed over. I said, "Oh, it looks like a new movie or something." I thought it was a movie, some big blockbuster movie like Die Hard or something that was coming. Goodness gracious, it's just was a little different from that day on for sure. So, Patrick, what do you remember? I mean, I'm
a little younger than y'all.
Yeah.
I was 12 when it happened, so I remember my mom coming and waking me up and bringing me down and I watched it on the television in our living room. And I didn't really at the time understand the ramifications of it all, but I mean, I was old enough to sort of understand, but yeah, I was 12.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Interesting times, but definitely thinking about all of those.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me. And thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast, go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, I'm Patrick.
I'm Glenn.
I'm Kevin.
Kevin Glenn here.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.